us that we might fulfill the ancient agreements we have made to lift this planet up and over its obstacles, to get to a place that has peaceful unfolding and graceful interaction between peoples. May we in all ways remember that this is our sacred mission, and that it is done by living our moments well. In all things, may the glory be to the infinite forever and ever. Amen. My brothers and sisters, thank you so much for coming out. It makes me very, very happy every time I come to Toronto. It's almost like a second home to me already. It's a vibrant city, it's alive. I go all over the world, and I often wish that we could give just a shot of Toronto to some of the other cities. Because the diversity of your culture and everybody brings their unique contribution. I love Toronto. So very nice to be here again. In the television show that I did this morning, I was asked prior to beginning, Almine, can you speak about why it is as though the world seems to be going to pieces? How is it that there's so many wars and areas of conflict, and it's as if it has suddenly erupted? And the answer to that I would like to elaborate on, because it's always disheartening when one gets to the edge of a reality and it's trying to move above and beyond, to go up and over. But suddenly the world around you pulls your attention back out to the way things were. And so we fall back out of moving on to the next level and go back to where we really don't want to give our attention. I want to explain in more details why it is that this needs to be prevented by the major light workers of the planet, people that have come to this edge to birth a new tomorrow. So firstly, and by the way, I will as always make time for questions tonight, so we can answer things that might be on your mind. So firstly, you know, this issue of the dawn is, it's always darkest right before dawn, is in fact the time of destructuring the old for something new to come in. So one destructures the old, and life seems like it is truly going to pieces. Part of this is the judgment we place and value we place on structure versus that which seems like chaos. If the caterpillar, and I believe I've said this before, if the caterpillar suddenly finds that its legs are falling off, all its legs are just going by the wayside, it's getting bumps on its back, it's changing form, it's turning into a butterfly. But for it, it's like the end of the world. What is happening here? Chaos, destructuring. Destructuring is simply the letting go of that which no longer serves. And until it is let go, it is a clashing of ideologies. A clashing, one would think, of different realities. Where we are now is a very, very crucial point. And part of it we will be discussing tonight, where exactly this point is, and the other part we will look at over the weekend and exactly how we can surf this wave we're on home, back to the beach. The first thing to discuss is the fact that there are different realities available to us on Earth. Now, normally there is the truth that every person is in a different reality. Why do I see you in front of me, and why does she see you in front of me when we're all in different realities? realities, the you that she sees is not the same you that I see. Because we can only see what is in us. So it's like a slice of bread, and the slice we're living from is the same slice that resonates with the slice in you. And because that slice in you touches us, that is what we end up seeing. So we're not seeing the same reality at all. We're not even seeing the same person. And if we take a look at this, we are in a situation where not only is that true that every person has the unique reality that they are living in and creating as they go, and I would like to talk tonight about the relationship between freedom of choice and infinite intent, how those work together. Because I was able to see it more clearly after receiving what is time-lapse and how time-lapse work. So, to go back a step, there are three main realities. The third one is just awakening. So, one can literally choose which level you're going to be living from. But if you're living from the highest level, life unfolds with grace. Now, if enough of us move into the highest level, it's like enough little steam particles escape, the water starts to boil. So it's a service to live our highest truth, and then to allow that to lift others up and over the things that are for them fearful. So, you know, an indication of how these realities are literally different. We have a small group of students in the Ukraine, in eastern Ukraine, where the war has been. I don't know the news, I don't know exactly what the status is, I only know the well-being because I feel it with my heart. But in the middle of being declared a war zone in their little town, twice a week they met together, they used the sacred tools we've been given, they would do what is the one for the environment? Starts with a K. Thank you. Thank you. So the Kalish Hospital they would do regularly. The yoga they would do regularly. And they say it is the most amazing thing. Now this is the last I've heard from them. They say we have been declared a war zone. We can hear bombs and hand grenades and things going off around the city. But not one has fallen on our city. And no airplanes above our city. And it's a little town, it's not really a city. That is the last I heard from them. But our students all over the world, we asked them to make us a list of their children, their husbands, every single family member that lives with them, and daily our students have been sending the hospital to keep them safe. They're in the middle of the war zone, of the little town became a different reality, a pocket in space that was different. We have at this point the opportunity to do this. And I will explain exactly what that means in a minute. Now, the other thing that I want to talk about is why does the earth seem to be in such chaos, other than that something brand new is happening on earth that has actually never happened before, and so the old is destructuring. You can say that those who walk the cutting edge and pulls life into a new level of existence, into a higher evolution, are in fact creating chaos. That is true. However, it doesn't have to be that way, because it can change through grace. If we know that what is out there is within here, and we change it with grace, outside of ourselves, in our reality, it also will change with grace. I was, to just talk about the Ukraine, I was there in February when the Ukrainian government ordered sharpshooters to shoot 100 civilians that were just standing in peaceful demonstration on their square. And my students there were, of course, extremely upset, we had to work on creating this sacred reality in the midst of it, or we would not be able to do what we came to do. But they said to me, Almine, you are always saying that we have to take responsibility for what happens in our particular environment. How could this possibly be something you can take responsibility for? Because this has only happened since you came to Kiev. And I can. Because I went that night and there were tanks rolling in and blockades in front of the hotel and all sorts of things. And I sat down and I truly looked at what in me is murderous. And I found it. It is the 7 bodies of man. Because each one of those bodies wants us to live in its realm. The realm of ascension, which is the spiritual, emotional, spiritual, mental, and spirit body, says, you've got to ascend. The other realms of the emotional and mental body say you've got to come to the soul world. In other words, you have to die. And then life says, with its etheric body and its physical body, no, you must stay alive. And this has been a complete inner war amongst the bodies, with our outer bodies intent on bringing about the death of the physical so that our awareness can shift into the other realities that they represent. Life in the mirrors is coming to an end. This is the story of the mirrors, where each mirror wants us to look into it. And we did find it. And as we did the self-work, by the last day that I was in Kiev, the corrupt government fell, and the tanks, the big army truck and blockade in front of our hotel moved away. It absolutely has to go with self-responsibility to bring a higher reality in. Because when something destructures, it is our absolute mandate to put something in its place. Otherwise, it's graceless, and forced change is not pleasant. So currently, the world is running out of energy. And the reason is that, and in fact, a war is a way that the earth tries to fix that situation. The energy source of the earth, and I'll just summarize these very briefly, the energy source of polarity, the man in the street's energy source, comes from opposites. The movement between the opposites is what provides his energy. However, it's not energy efficient, because you actually spend more energy to get it to move back and forth than it provides back. So the energy, eventually, with what we call positive inertia says that if you do not regularly give pockets of energy to something, that it will eventually run down. It can't maintain itself. So through that kind of inertia, the earth now is running out of energy. It's showing up in depleted environments, in the depletion of energy in the individual. Financial resources that dwindle is always a sure sign that the power on earth is dwindling. And then a war causes overpolarization and makes energy. So, there just has to be a better way to do this. So the next reality that men are moving into is the reality of oneness. Oneness delivers more energy than it takes. There's a whole explanation behind how its energy is produced, but let's just summarize it with that. It has excess energy, and all of a sudden in oneness, life begins to flourish. But oneness is the opposite of separation. You are still subject to the matrix of opposites, just at a larger level. And at opposites, you always have to go back to the other opposite. It's like two children on a seesaw or a teeter-totter. It demands that if one goes up, it also has to come down. So oneness delivers more energy and is truly a good answer temporarily. Its danger is that you stagnate in the bliss that it produces. And secondly, when it falls back into its opposite, it feels as if you've done something very wrong and now you've fallen out of heaven again. So it's good to get to, but you cannot stay there. And so what is beyond it is resurrection. If we could look at life and death and ascension as a triad, this triad is on a disc, and the disc has been going round and round and round, and inside its rim. There are specific challenges that we face when we hit these different quadrants. We are leaving the quadrant in which the light workers of the earth are waking up, the major ones that are saying, wait a minute, I don't belong to humanity. I was here long before. I am of the ancient gods and goddesses. I've walked in forgetfulness amongst humanity. This is who I am. No wonder I never fit in. No wonder, my family didn't even work for me. These kinds of things this is why. Well, the time of their awakening would have been passing within months. And then what we're looking at is we're entering a quadrant in which there is the possibility of artificial intelligence being dominant on Earth. That sounds outrageous, and one of my support team said that they read a book on artificial intelligence in terms of the computers of the Earth, and that we are not very far away from where they are able to talk to one another. That's not the area to be concerned about. The area to be concerned about is nanotechnology. And yet again, this time around, we know that we can deal with the external by dealing with it within. So the issue of nanotechnology, which there's 10 nations on Earth that have made a coalition, and Canada and America is certainly not one of them, but they've made an agreement to do this, actually, to be part of governing the Earth through nanotechnology, because you can very strongly erase memories, you can put new memories in, there's many things that you can do. And they have what's called the spy bots, and that's so minute, only an electron microscope will see them, but you can actually see anywhere on Earth by sending it into the house. So we are at that point. This disk has gone through sections known as the life cycles of the cosmos, the death cycles of the cosmos, and the ascension cycles of the cosmos. Each one telling you that it's more valuable than the other. The reality that I'm about to tell you is, in fact, if you look at that as a triad, and we've called it the 3 linear stages of change: transformation, transmutation, transfiguration, part of ascension. But there is a fourth, and it is the point up here that's in a whole different plane. And it creates of life a virtual reality experience rather than a very flat, 2-dimensional reality experience. Up here is transcendence. Transcendence is resurrection. The Earth is actually getting ready and has been lifting itself above the old war between the 3 factions into a reality beyond it. Now, the reality beyond it, if we know and we can get there, which is what we're studying this weekend. So, the reality beyond it has to do with living a life beyond subatomic matter. The particles, known as the quantum particles, the subatomic particles, we call them, in spiritual language, awareness particles. We've been studying since I began it in January in 2007, we started to study them here in Toronto, these little particles. And as long as we are subject to the messages in awareness particles, we are making ourselves vulnerable for this kind of a scenario. And we've been there many times. And it is no wonder that the sacred history of man and of the holy ones that walk amongst man and so on is forgotten, because it keeps wiping out memories. And then they want us to remember all over again the role that you're playing. Now, to move into what we can call matterless matter, because matter is part of the two-dimensional disk, to move into the matterless matter, if enough of us can do that, then we can actually prevent the reality of where awareness particles start to take over and tell us how to live. The first time I encountered this was in 2007, where I recognized that the infinite's intent was being overridden. And when I could go into an expanded state, I could hear it like white noise, or better still, actually black noise, which is so subliminal the ear can't hear it. And where it comes from is the awareness particles. It overrides infinite intent. And what I hope tonight to share with you is, where does infinite intent come from? And how do we hear it? So, what we are looking at is life off the disk. And it is available now on Earth. Throughout the summer, things have been put in place. It's available for us to live. We just need to understand how to go there. So, first of all, its energy source is self-generating. It doesn't produce the excess energy of oneness, but now there's a price to pay, and so you have to go back to separation so you can give the energy back, because there it's lost. Here it's gained, there it's lost. Law of compensation. We move beyond the law of compensation when we move to what we can call matterless matter. Now, it's only in the last sort of 2 months that matterless matter has been revealed, and I have written a book this thick, I'm still writing it, it's called The Bridge of No Time, and I've been writing it for the last 2 months. And it has explained about matterless matter. It says that matter becomes firm and solid, it becomes our tyrant when it is shaped through frequency. And again, if through nanotechnology, which is so minute, nobody even knows it's there, if you change the frequency, you change the shape of reality. It's the easiest way to govern reality. So the next thing is that matter that is not made from atomic matter, it responds very fluidly to intent. It's like the waves on the ocean, that they don't ever leave the ocean, but yet they form. And we have not had anything like that on Earth. It's the Earth's next step in her evolution. And so the waves become formed through intent, but a wave doesn't stay there long unless you somehow intend to keep it there, create the right conditions that generates wave all the time. What we're looking at is that matterless matter that is not based on subatomic particles forms from intent. It doesn't form from clustering. Those of you who might have tuned into this morning's television program, I spoke about clustering, and I've said this many times here, but you know, when you see a spider web, you can see little dewdrops clinging to it. If you look carefully, you'll see that the dewdrops are in a pattern because they're sticking to something on the web. The glue is spread over the web. The spider then plucks it with her feet as she sits in the middle of her web, and the glue clusters. The frequency clusters the glue, and the dew sticks to those areas where there are little glue drops. They become dewdrops. Clustering is the way that this matter that we have been living in takes shape. That's also why each of us sings a very unique song with our life, with our body, and so on. Atomless matter does not cluster from frequency. It is therefore the answer to rise above any threat that could come in from nanotechnology. I will be twice teaching in the Ural Mountains in Russia in this coming year. The Ural Mountain area where I teach, I love my students there. They're just very dear to my heart, as you are. But the Ural Mountain area now, there's multiple huge areas in which Russian scientists have uncovered, by looking through electron microscopes, nanotechnology in their sand. The lady who's the scientist that they've assigned to studying this says that it's about 180,000 years old. And her conclusion was it's not from the Earth, of course, because they are presuming that 180,000 years ago we didn't have the ability to produce it. So it's more of a deduction. If you look at a picture of it, which I have, it's a little rod with two little indentations where it was gripped when it was produced, and it has coil around it like an electromagnet. And they are in the soil, up and down the Ural Mountains. And that's only what we know about. I have known something's in the soil of Egypt. I have declined going there, even though my students have said, let's go to Egypt, because until we know the way above it, and how to live above it, it's also there in the sands. And then there's two other types that I've been teaching about that I know about only from translating the crop glyphs. And one is organic. And the other one is said by the Japanese scientists to look like little chemical factories. Something that produces little chemicals. These are out of sight, so we ignore them. We can't. Because it makes us keep having to start over and over again to remember who we are, what we are doing, and the vast potential that is ours. So, my brothers and sisters, where is the energy source in this matterless matter reality that's Earth, our usual disk of existence? The energy source comes from the following. And this is going to discuss and address the issue of how do we know and interpret the will of the infinite. So number one, see, during death, you actually work with inner space. It's as though you are retreating into inner space. During life, you work with outer space. Resurrection combines life and death into one. It forms a unified expression of life and death. That's what resurrection is. And I learned much from resurrection, and I told the story before this morning in a television show of Liquid Lunch. What happened in Siberia when one of my students dropped down dead, and she was no pulse, no heartbeat, no breathing. My assistant was there, to witness this. And after 12 minutes of working with her, she sat up and she said, I was dead, but she resurrected me. What I learned from that was, for me, priceless. For the first time, I started to understand resurrection. That resurrection combines inner and outer space. How does it do it? Well, there's what I've tracked so far is two levels of resurrection. that lies beyond the oneness that we usually assume is mastery. And in the first level, the Ida and Pingala, which incidentally, life moved between the Ida and the Pingala as the dominant area of expression. It was twirling around the pranic tube. During death, one side of it becomes more active, the feminine, and then during life, the masculine becomes more active. We also, in our Arasatma breathing techniques, which I've asked that tomorrow after class, that we talk to everybody here and everybody do the Arasatma breathing techniques, it starts to work with the full pranic tube. In Hindu traditions, it is regarded as the coiled serpent at the base of the spine, that the pranic tube goes through the body, but then sort of just coils there. And it doesn't. It uses this part during the day, and it uses the part from the bottom of the spine to a hand length into the ground during the dream. It uses this during life, and it uses that during death. In working with the Arasatma breathing techniques, we are preparing for resurrection by using the full pranic tube. And during the first stage of resurrection, what happened, when she came back, her body was resurrected because of what I was able to see and assist with. The Ida and Pingala marry, and now you have a combined life and death experience. You are wakeful in your sleep, and you are really resting when you're awake. Yet this is combining. Sleep is truly changing. And we can certainly elaborate more on that. But life and death combines. And now, why have we focused so much on interpreting our dream state? We have a complete free dream dictionary that's been handed down from Nahual to Nahual through the eons of Nahuals going back and forth to study people's sleep. I had a sleep workshop at my house, and with the sisters that were there with their permission, I was able to study them in their sleep. And understanding sleep is a huge answer to where do we get infinite intense messages from. It comes through inner space. Well, if inner space is experienced during sleep, then it is very important that we listen to the messages that are coming from our dreams. So, those who walk this journey with me, they are highly literate in studying their environment, because the environment speaks of inner stirrings. Let's summarize what I just said. There are 672 inner senses. They are responses to the infinite's intent. The infinite's intent comes as inspiration. So these let's call them waveforms of inspiration, ripple through these 672 inner senses, like a harpist playing the harp. And so, what we are looking at is that the inner reality is vital as the first place of receiving infinite intent. For those who are kind of shut off to their inner reality, it speaks as symbols in the environment, yes. But for the one who is open to both the inner and the outer experiences of their individuation, that's the first place the harpist starts to stroke the 672 heartstrings. So the next thing is that it now has to go into outer expression. We want to do the infinite's will. So it has to now go into the outer expression. So how is that done? Because The mind that works with outer expression needs something that it can hold on to. It needs something it can start to unravel what lies in that labyrinth of inner space. We are looking at 7 external senses, and 5 you're aware of. The 6th sense has to do with skin that responds to its environment without being touched. I get goosebumps. I can feel this rippling through my skin all the way down. The hair on my neck is standing up, etc. So these are responses of the skin without it being touched. Organs do the same thing. They are the 7th sense. The visceral response of the organs. That makes my stomach tight. You know, this hurts my heart so badly. There is pain in my heart. The feeling that you can't breathe because things are trying to put programs on you. Very important way that your lungs signal you. So these are the 7 senses. 672 is 96 times 7. 96 inner senses for every external sense. And they speak to one of the specific senses. The inner, there are 7 sets inside. Each one of them is very particularly talking to one of our senses. So, how can they talk? Because of the fact that one is non-cognitive and the other is cognitive in its language. The body of information that I'm currently writing down is the handbook for becoming a grandmaster of the runes. Runes are non-cognitive symbols that actually is a bridge between inner and outer space. There are 672 symbols. They're the runes. There are, in fact, 672 acupuncture points. And one is the high heart. The other one is sitting right here. It's for this weekend. But there's a piece of information that I have to find before it will reveal itself. But 671 is the high heart. Let's see why. Why is that so important? There's something that seemed unfair to me, and that is that the way out of the matrix of opposites goes to the feminine. So it seems masculine, and I have found this a lot in the brothers in my environment, that they ignore their own intuition because their partner keeps telling them, I see this, I see that, I see this, and they act as though they can't see themselves. And I continually said, please don't do that. How are you going to develop it if you keep relying on an external feminine? There was a reason for it, and it lies under the surface. The reason for it is the high heart. The feminine, the oneness, as chosen reality, is the step out of the matrix of opposites because it has an 8th chakra. Native Americans have always worn turquoise jewelry on their chest, and for them it is the meeting of the sky and the earth, the green and the blue, and it reminds them that it is here where heaven and earth meet. Fascinating, because that is exactly true in that it is during oneness or expanded awareness, the feminine, that the 8th chakra is active. And the 8th chakra of these 7 is in the high heart. It is turquoise. That is the gateway to getting out of having to always pay for flourishing, to be free from the law of compensation. It's the high heart. It's going through the high heart. The piece of information that is missing for me to find the 672nd acupuncture point Now, I'm looking at Anita because she's been very helpful. She's an acupuncturist. I know Michael is as well. She's been very helpful in providing me with the points that are currently there. And there were 2 missing. And the 2 that are missing are the points that stimulate exit through the matrix into a whole other reality of the disc. A fascinating thing is this. I was accurate in feeling that it is unjust for the feminine to control the masculine's evolution. And what the issue is there is that it makes a lot of rage between your inner masculine and feminine. During this weekend, we will be studying how to get out of the matrix through contracted perspective. In other words, the man in the street, how can he get out of the matrix if he doesn't know how to go into expanded bliss? And so there is a way to get out through the high heart, and there is something that creates of your reality an implosion, and a single point through which you move into a higher reality. And that we will study this weekend. And I know that hearing these things for the first time sounds like, oh my gosh, I don't think I can attend this class, because how am I ever going to understand these things? My loves, if you're patient with me the first day, there never has been a time, and some of you have walked with me 15, 16 years on this journey, there never has been a time where by the end of the last day, everything doesn't make complete sense to everybody there. It takes repetition, but at the end of the weekend, all the pieces fall together. You have brought in some, I have brought in some, and it fits. So we are going to learn how to be able to access the divine will through inner space while we combine inner and outer space, so that our life becomes guided by inner will. Unless we know how to do this, it's just semantics. It's just a saying, I want to do God's will. And nobody really knows what they're saying. Because sometimes it's a needy inner child that guides your heart and says, yes, 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 this is the right partner, because there's neediness. And it doesn't matter how successful business people are in their life, if they are emotionally not home for themselves, the sub-personalities within will pull their strings, and these promptings could well disguise themselves as the will of the infinite. So it's important that we understand that it comes through inspiration. Now, I was asked this morning on the television show, Almine, what is the key to unlocking the high heart? And it's fascinating. It is the combination of inner and outer states of nature. It is preceded by taking responsibility for your environment. If there is war somewhere and you don't like it, find what is at war within and work on it and find it until eventually the outer will follow suit as you resolve it within. Now, states of nature. Nature is not a place nor a condition externally. We are the origin of our environment. The infinite shines through the lens of our individuation and produces what we see and experience. So now how can we be separate from what we are projecting, which is nature? Nature is a state of being. And earlier in last year, I found that there were 27 states of nature, external states, that we can live. If they lock someone up in a little cell somewhere, you can still be in nature by living those states of nature. Then, when this produced itself, you know, every class I teach is new for me, and every book I write is completely new for me, and we have how many books now. When I started to receive the inner states of nature, I realized that firstly, they were like going down the rabbit hole in Alice in Wonderland. They were like nothing I could have imagined. But when they combine with outer states of nature, the alchemy of that equation opens the high heart, and you slip through as a resurrected being. And now, before that, self-responsibility is absolutely crucial. To instead of criticize the world, and continually this morning the questions were asked, well, are we going to leave this world behind? Well, anything you deny the right to exist, you strengthen. It is very important for us. Firstly, that we not reject any part of the destructuring process, but acknowledge that it has value only because we have not put in place that which will allow the graceful changes on earth to take place. Now, my loves, I just need to peek at my clock over here. Okay. We just look and see if I've answered everything I wanted to address, and if I have, we will be able to just... There is another thing that happens with resurrection, so that you understand about the energy source. See, in Siberia, and I told this story before, I have a brother, and he is truly masterful as a high alchemist. He has taken the Kivesta and he has refined it to such an extent that he governs his day with the high alchemy of the tool that we have, which is the Kivesta. So finally he said to me, look, Almine, there's got to be another way. If I do the Kivesta, my restaurant is filled with people. If I don't, it's empty. So literally every day I have to do the Kivesta and my business flourishes. Surely there is some sort of a perpetual source of alchemy. Yes, there is. It's perpetual alchemy. All of life is alchemy. Now, if you have a partner, some people think, well, okay, I can just sort of do this on the side. It does not no real harm done. I can watch pornography behind the corner here. No real harm done to my relationship. I haven't been unfaithful. Well, you have, in that you have disturbed the alchemy, that you've disturbed the soil in which your relationship is growing. And so the alchemy of it is extremely important. Businesses run on alchemy. It could make such a difference if they really just could understand that. Edward, for years, had his factories and things up for sale. Nobody even came to look at it. He did the Kivesta daily. All of a sudden, they sold far beyond what he expected, or even what he asked. It was amazing. Everywhere around us is alchemy. We either master it or we haphazardly create our environment. The perpetual alchemy that you find in resurrection, because alchemy is part of physical contracted vision. The expanded vision uses high alchemy, where the practitioner is part of the equation. And we have an online course called the Kivesta. And for those of you that are here tonight, if you have not taken any of our online courses, the Kivesta course, the Kivesta course I want to give you as a gift. It's $100 value. Just contact my office and ask them, tell them I said to this group that it's a gift, and that you can have the Kivesta course for free. But it will teach you high alchemy, how to prepare yourself to become pure enough that you can become part of an equation that produces purity in your environment. As a resurrected being, you use perpetual alchemy. if we can use perpetual alchemy, we have to have a perpetual interaction that is there timelessly. What it is the harvest. When you are attuning to those inner senses, the 672 runes that I've received is the language to interpret it if you truly want to master the art of it. But if you become living in a way that inner and outer space is combined, and the infinite plays the harp, and the music is an immediate result in your environment, you have now got a partner in the alchemy that is a perpetual source. You have created a perpetual energy source within, and it ripples into your outer world because they are combined as a resurrected being. And then secondly, you have created a perpetual alchemy is an energy source. But there's a bigger thing that's at play here. What you've created is the spiritual maturity to choose your own path. Let's see how that works. And then after I explain this, I'll ask you questions. When I received these time maps, they were fascinating to me. And I realized that the Chinese New Year is usually pretty close, within a day or two, of when the time maps in the cosmos changes. So in other words, excuse me, just a moment. Somehow in ancient times, I've actually tracked how this has happened. It has to do with the presentation that Taiwan recently made in the United Nations about the history of their nations, of the Chinese people. Fascinating. Long ago, they had access to the information that the cosmic time maps changes around this coming year. It will change around the 14th or 15th of February. That's the Chinese New Year. It's in every way a cosmic New Year because the time map then changes. Now, in the time map, and Tim would possibly be able to tell you where to find it on our blog or something. Maybe it's on the I Am course, and we can show you during the weekend what they look like. But we have 3 time maps because there's 3 realities available on Earth right now. On the time map, the lines that flow through the map is a little bit like your streets in Toronto. Let's say 3 of us want to get from here to the other side of Toronto. We're all going to choose different routes to get there. The streets is infinite intent. It is, however, yours to choose which way you want to go on those streets. And so in this way, you are starting to say, okay, I know the street because I feel the inspiration. We are led not by hardship, but by inspiration. You know, I was speaking today about someone that had a very traumatic childhood experience where they were falsely accused of taking money they never took. Their best friend took it, but they didn't want to, as you say, rat the friend out. So the whole school rejected him as a child. So this terrible thing that happened, when I looked at it, I saw that it had guided him into becoming really excellent as a financial administrator. Because if anybody said, you took that, he says, no, here is the number. Life and where resources were was able to be predicted by his expertise and his college degrees in financial degree of some sort, that it guided his life. We don't need to be guided through hardship, which comes incidentally as a side effect of being part of opposites. In rising above opposites, where opposites are lived as an emphasis within it's emphasized within unity. I would say it's cooperative emphasis. It's like your body is here, but only the hand chooses to do movement. So the hand's movement is emphasized, the rest of the body is still. It's still part of your body. When we get to that stage, we listen to the inspiration and know it is infinite intent. The listening becomes more and more refined as we use this as our guiding source. And as we use it as our guiding source, eventually we are able, with great maturity, to choose the way our life unfolds, knowing that the only place you can drive is in the street. Therefore, everything we are inspired to choose is the infinite's will. So, somebody said to me today as well, how can we do these things for the world if they may choose not to have it? So we have to ask the lowest common denominators permission to be everything we can be. I don't think so. You always fulfill your highest calling, my loves, if you shine. If you take up a mantle of responsibility for your environment and you live every moment beautifully. So thank you, and I'm going to now let you ask questions, but can I ask the first question, please? Last time I was here, I met a gentleman from Taiwan, and I think he was studying or teaching Buddhism at the local college. We found his number, his email address. We've been emailing him. I am looking for people from Taiwan that are able to translate for us. So if you know of anybody that is familiar with Buddhist teachings, which is helpful, so we can use language that they can understand, but there's a huge push to get my work in there because of a very beautiful man that is promoting us, Dr. John Young. And so he's bringing the work in there, but it has to be put in language that a Buddhist audience can understand, like instead of enlightenment, maybe illumination, or whatever it is. So if any of you know, please let us know. I would be most appreciative. We've emailed him. I met him at the bookstore, but he hasn't responded back, so he maybe changed emails.
And you can copy his phone number too. I can call him.
Would you please?
Sure.
I would be so grateful. Okay, sweetheart, if I could speak with him at some point, that'd be great. My loves, have you got any questions for me? Yes, darling.
Covering the Merkaba.
Yes. Oh, thank you. Because that ties in so perfectly with what I said. See, I understood that this luminous cocoon, and you can page through our books there and see the 7 bodies of man and how it makes this luminous cocoon, which is their vehicle of time-space. It's the vehicle. Time-space vehicle is murderous, as we said earlier, for the physical life. It creates wear and tear, it creates aging, it creates disease as a method of telling us things, as a communication method. And we've studied the language of pain and disease so that our Bhavasthita practitioners can go right to where the origin is. But we are only subject to these 7 bodies of man, which are in fact the mirrors of life. They are mirrors. Mirrors arise the way scar tissue arises when your skin separates. Mirrors arise when you have polarity. The way to close it is to eliminate judgment of value on one versus the other. To understand that bad means just something's restructuring for something new to come in. Good is the old you hold on to because it's a reference point in your overwhelming vastness, but they have equal value. If you didn't hold on so tightly, life would yield with grace, and forceful restructuring wouldn't be necessary. These 7 bodies, the vehicle of man, are mirrors. So now, what vehicle do we have when we are in resurrected life? The vehicle we have in resurrected life, I will tell you what it looks like, because I had it on film, filmed by the BBC. My cousin is a filmmaker for BBC, and unfortunately it was thrown away when the house in England, I gave my house away in England. And when I did, they just stripped everything inside. It was there. But it shows crop lift being made. We've got the sound of the crop lift being made, but the visual looks a little bit, a lot actually, like what we are forming around our body as a resurrected being, which is what I call the God murderer. Because it creates a brand new vehicle for us through a whole new reality that isn't hostile to us, it's an expression of us. So, see, they set up their cameras, according to my cousin, in the specific field, because in Wiltshire, all around the one field, glyphs formed. Almost like they were trying to say, set up here. We're going all around us, the only one left. This is where you must set up. So they set up the film crew there, and if you want to, just raise your hand if you would like at the end. I'll ask Tim to play the sound of it. And it goes shh, shh, as the wheat folds. But what was making the crop lift is a little ball of light. And you see him moving all over. And as he moves, push, 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 it just falls into place. Darling?
Well, I saw a video like that when I was in England about 8 years ago. I'd gone for Stonehenge to some solstice, and this lady who was doing videography, she was making videos or something, she just happened to catch it. So she has a minute, and so there was about 7 of us that saw this video. It was just about a minute long, this little ball of light moving along that goes down.
That's right. Yes, that's the same video I had. Well, I mean, not the same, but same scenario. So, now, if you look carefully at this little ball, you see that the top is turning one way and the bottom is turning the other way, and in the middle it overlaps. It's made itself a little universe of negative, positive, and neutral, all encapsulated in one little ball of light. And as it moves, as it goes around, the grain just responds. And we will, would you like to hear it? Yes. Let's, Tim, if we could get that, that would be so wonderful. We'll play it for you. It's amazing. It's a very similar ball of light that you create around you. And you also learn to work with creating, for example, a unique space. So let's take, for instance, my students in Ukraine. Eastern Ukraine, that's, the problem area. I create a space that I put over them like a dome. The intent in the space is, no matter where those bombs fall, they will walk through the